never nursed properly. And I was devastated. But I'm like, I will do anything, whatever you say that I have to do. Because as a result of her not being able to latch on, my supply dwindled. And so I hired her, she came to the house, and she got me set up on this really strict regimen. Because she was so old, being diagnosed 3 months old, you know, it was tough. I had to breastfeed her every 2 to 3 hours, and then I used a supplemental nursing system often. I got a ton of donated breast milk. Yeah, and so I would use the system, and that was really hard to get used to. And then having a toddler too, it was tough. So I did end up giving her a bottle quite a bit, and so I had to breastfeed every 2 to 3 hours. I had to, you know, supplement the rest that she needed, and then I had to pump right after. And this was around the clock, so I did this like in the middle of the night. It was like having a newborn all over again, and I was breastfeeding my. And I imagine it was maybe something a little bit like nursing twins and a toddler. I will be very okay if I never have to use a pump again for the rest of my life. I was actually better at hand expressing than using a pump, but so I had to do that, and I took all the herbs I was supposed to take, and I even went as far as started to take domperidone, which is a pharmaceutical. That's the side effect is actually milk production, and unfortunately it gave me depression, so that was not okay, you know. So I stopped taking it, and I stopped nursing my son. It was just, you know, pumping and nursing my daughter. All the while, my daughter is like, you know, as soon as she started getting a couple of months, she was angry. She's always been very healthy, always happy, always alert, you know. And so like some of the obvious, you know, indications of her gaining weight being a problem was there. But so it was I continued to get donated breast milk from friends. I'm so fortunate to be in this community with a lot of breastfeeding moms. I got a lot of support from friends and strangers too, on Facebook support groups, and I asked for help shamelessly.
Good for you.
People brought me food, you know, they come and hung out with my son, and my husband was very supportive too. And then I started to learn more. Oh, and then I met Peggy like a few days after her diagnosis, or I went to your breastfeeding group.
Yeah.
I had met you before, I don't even remember where, but anyway, and then you looked at her mouth. This was just like the few days after she got the diagnosis, and you looked at her mouth and suggested that she was lip tied, and told me about a dentist in Castro Valley who specializes in doing he uses a laser, not scissors. So I immediately took her there, and he confirmed her lip tie, lasered it, and I was still having some pain breastfeeding after her tongue was done, and as soon as it was done, she latched on, and it was the best latch she had ever had.
Wow.
And granted, I was a little fuller at that point by then, but it was the best latch. And then he told me all these exercises I need to be doing with her tongue, and that's also the lactation consultant had me doing along with all the pumping, was we had to relearn how to nurse basically. My 3-month-old and I had to relearn how to nurse. I was still nursing a 2.5-year-old, so this was, for me, it was just like, I can't believe I didn't know, you know. But we got through it. I had to continue to supplement her though. It took a really long time to get my supply up. In fact, I'm not even sure it ever got up to the point where it needed to be before she started to have solids. Getting donated breast milk is really hard that you trust, and I did end up, I was fortunate to be aware of a homemade formula that it's a Weston A. Price homemade formula with really awesome ingredients that I could actually feel kind of good about. Kind of. it's not a replacement for breast milk, but it is a replacement for conventional formula.
For sure.
I didn't always know that I was going to have kids, but I did know that if I were to, I was definitely going to breastfeed. Didn't know why, didn't know anything about it. It's just what you do. It's how you know, babies. I didn't even see much breastfeeding going on growing up at all. Really not until I got pregnant with my son. Yeah, and then after having him and learning about, you know, everything I've learned about breastfeeding and everything, I became a very serious advocate. I became a doula. I advised women in breastfeeding, and you know, went to Let You Lead meetings, and for this to happen, it was a blow, you know. If there's anything that I want people to take away from my experience is the lesson of humility that I learned. Because I was judgmental when I would see moms feeding their babies formula. Presumptuous about why some women did it, and why they chose to stop. You know, like, oh, they're just not, they don't have enough support, they don't know, they're not educated enough, yada, yada, yada. Don't they know how horrible formula is, you know? And you just don't know. Every time I gave her a bottle, I had this, like, guilty relief giving it to her.
It's like stuff maybe not to get into.
Even though we are in, you know, part of this, you know, pro breastfeeding community, there is judgment in there amongst this community. And I really want to ask people to be sensitive and to any mom's choices for how they feed their babies. Because you just don't know. And this is happening a lot, you know, and like talking about your son, and so my son is 4 years old. He had cavities before he even ever had sugar. Wow. When he was 2 years old, he had 2 cavities. I took him to see that specialist when he was 3, just to take a look at his mouth, and he's lip-tied. He's lip-tied all the way around. You see, you can lift up his lips and you can see how he's tied all the way up. He's got the gap. He's breathes. He sleeps with his mouth open. He snores. He was a gagger. He was not good at eating solids. And chili, you know. And we also learned that why my mother did not have success breastfeeding my brother. He is severely lip-tied, or tongue-tied and lip-tied. And we know now why my sister-in-law couldn't nurse her boy, because he is tongue-tied. Wow. Yeah, so I hate to say good came out of it, but something good did. One more thing that I would like to say is to all of the practitioners, lactation consultants, doulas, pediatricians, breastfeeding educators, birth educators, everyone, that even if you think you know how to identify a tongue tie, you really might not. Because there's different degrees of it. You know, my midwives didn't catch my daughters. It was just not as apparent as some. It was really obvious, but maybe a combination of her tongue, her lip, and that she was petite, and she had a small mouth. You know, all those things can contribute. And I would never, ever, ever hesitate to get a second opinion. I personally would never hesitate to have it fixed either, which I've heard some, you know, mothers, if their babies are having weight gain problems and if there's extreme pain, I would never hesitate to get it fixed. Ever. So, that is my story.
We really want to thank you for sharing that. Like you see, I can just as we were speaking, I can just see the journey and all that you've gone through. And I want to ask Peggy a quick question. And like, how prevalent is tongue tie? Like one in how many babies might be? Are there stats on that?
It just depends, and the percentage, you know, appears to be 5 to 12%. First, I just want to say, you know, I knew Shauna when she was doing a huge job. You worked so hard. know, we know what we know, and you didn't get what we all hoped for, but you did such an incredible job, and you're still doing such
Yeah, we're still breastfeeding.
Yeah. Oh,
she doesn't have any plans on stopping anytime soon. So
I didn't realize.
Yeah, we continue to breastfeed, and I met women. Sorry, I'm shaking. I just got
It's cold. Yeah, it's cold.
Who their babies never made it back to the breast. So I am very grateful, that I have the support too.
I really want to echo that because this journey is one that was propelled by you. I mean, you had to seek help. You could have just put a bottle in the baby's mouth and gone on about your business, and you didn't do that. I mean, so I feel sad that you walked away from this powerful story feeling that you did something wrong and you were remiss in some way. You went to how many different professionals and that we were grappling with it. I think if we're going to blame anybody, which is not helpful, but I think if we want to blame anybody, it's this crazy society that we live in. That this basically, 12% is not incredibly rare.
Again, 5 to 12.
5 to 12, 5 to 12.
Right.
But still, that's not,
No.
less than 1%. And the world we live in, because of the introduction of the bottles and the formula, has masked something that's fairly common. Fairly common. So, it's how we have to go back to nature more, to go back to midwifery, primary midwifery before a lot of medicine, and before folks who want to sell us formula. And I also want to amplify what you were saying also about not being judgmental, because I happen to believe that formula is a medication. And there are times to take medication.
That's a really good way to look at it. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? There are times when the baby needs to have formula. So you get the highest quality formula you can, and do the supplemental nursing, whatever, and keep working to get the baby back on the breast if possible. So no harm, no foul here. No harm, no foul.
And I do, I would like to talk a little bit, because what we learned in the last couple of years is about that mouth breathing. And mouth breathing, snoring, when we think of we laugh about it, we joke about it, but, it's not good for the body. It's not good for the brain. It's not good for the heart. You're not. And so there was actually just a conference in Los Angeles last week about the airway. And so when the tongue is up in the palate where it belongs and breastfeeding is happening and the tongue is pushing the breast up into the palate, it makes a nice wide arc and it makes a nice open airway. And so then babies, children, people were able to be nose breathers, and the nose filters the allergens, so we have much less in the way of allergies. Mouth breathing also leads to drying of the tissues of the gums, and so that leads to dental problems. So the airway is actually trumping the breast milk. So some people who have difficulty breastfeeding will think, I will pump and I will give my baby breast milk in a bottle, and it's just as good. But the truth is, it's not just as good. And there hasn't yet, if there ever will be, then a bottle developed that can mimic that breast up in the palate multiple times a day, making that nice wide arc. And so this is important in, for so many areas, but especially when we think of small children and we think of all the ADHD that's being diagnosed now, and all it is. And so this latest thing just published, a professor at Stanford, UCSF Dental School, and a university in Taiwan, that that short lingual frenulum is going to cause that collapsed palate, that smaller airway, not enough oxygen, moving into ADHD.
Wow.
And so, and sleep disordered breathing. So sleep disordered breathing, you know, when we look at children, and in children, you know, sleep disordered breathing is different. We are sleepy, adults are sleepy when we don't sleep well. Children get revved. They do the opposite. Yeah. And so, you know, this latest article is like, pediatricians need to be assessing children who don't sleep well. They need to be assessing for sleep disordered breathing. Instead of, let's give everybody medication, there are small children in preschools getting medications. So it's really, that's how important it is.
That's incredibly
to learn about tongue-tie. I do think, you know, I have a friend in Sacramento who, you know, she laughs but says, midwives, how about if I take care of above the waist and you take care of below the waist? You know, let me take care of the highlight, let me take care of the, you know, breastfeeding lactation end of it, let me assess the mouth. I would never try to help someone get hurt if I don't know about that. You know, it's just, I think we can't be all things to all people.
right.
So, but, you know, getting help. And I want to go back to the not pooping. That is one of those things. It became common, and so it came to be viewed as normal. Not pooping is not normal for any person on the planet.
Right.
Breastfed babies don't use up all the calories. I know this has been, I know, I thought it too, you know, and it's still everywhere online, but it's not true. You know, by about day 4, 5, 6, all babies should poop at least 4 times a day. Probably even more, but at least 4 times a day. And so, looking at what diapers doesn't tell us, it's the pooping that tells us what's happening.
That's about the pooping.
Yeah, and another thing, tongue-tied babies have difficulty with pooping. Like peristalsis, you know, starts in the mouth. It's all connected. It's in one long tube. And babies who have a tongue-tied release start pooping regularly, as they should. We're all connected. So anyway, as you can
How
tell,
will people find you, Peggy? Because, you know, this information is just wonderful. And thank you for coming and sharing it with us, because, you know, if moms are watching or if moms see the video later, you know, this could be just the thing that they'll like what goes on, and oh my gosh, you know. And they can certainly try other lactation consultants in their area. But please talk about your practice a little bit. How long have you been a lactation consultant?
so I certified as an IBCLC in 2011. I've been a postpartum doula since 2002. So I do love that mother in the mother aspect. You know, love doula. Let me go to one little thing. The term lactation consultant has not ever been traded. So if you want to say you're a lactation consultant, if you want to say you're a lactation, anybody can say that. And so that's why we're really working on, if you are an IBCLC, everyone needs to say, I am an IBCLC. I have had this specific training. I have sat for a board exam. So it is different. A CLC, a certified lactation counselor, has had a one-week class. A one-week class. So that's really different, you know, than an IBCLC. So I do home visits, you know, pretty much many places in the Bay Area. It's Peggy Hinkle, hinkle.com. There's a wonderful Facebook page, California Tongue and Lip Tie, and lots of resources in the files there. There's a huge international group, Tongue-Tied Baby Support on Facebook, with 30,000 members. So much information in those files.
So if you would do me a favor, when we're done with this today, if you can send me those links, and when I post the YouTube video, I'll post those links on there so families can find me, and your website as well as their local. They can give you a call, because part of what we want to do is feature our wonderful Bay Area birth professional people. Thanks, so quite amazing. And I want to thank you so much, Shauna, for your amazing